One of my mom's favorite rides at Disney World was called It's a Small World. Now I imagine most, if not all of you, just heard that song play in your mind as soon as I mentioned it. With the technology that we have available to us today, it truly has become a small world, and it affords us this opportunity to speak with one of our missionaries that we support here at Highland. Jordan Graham ministers to the Bangor Church of Christ in Bangor, Ireland, outside of Belfast. He has been preaching at the Bangor congregation alongside his father Colin since 2018. Jordan has been married to his wife Amy for around 7 years, and they have three beautiful children. My family and I were able to briefly meet Jordan back in May of 2019. Unfortunately, we were unable to meet Amy and the kids because they were homesick. Our intention was to worship that Sunday morning with the Bangor Church of Christ, but we were late finding the community center where they meet, and so we ended up showing up at the end of service. Afterward, we introduced ourselves to Jordan, and he came out and he prayed with us and for safe travels. It was one of the highlights of our trip. So without further ado, I introduce you to Jordan Graham. How you doing this evening, man?
Really good, really good. We had a nice sunny day and the kids were out in the garden, so even though we were locked down, we were kind of loose lockdown.
Yep, exactly, man. So we really appreciate you taking the time this evening to spend a few minutes with us here. If you would, go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, about your family, and what called you into ministry.
So I'm Jordan. I'm a missionary in Northern Ireland. I'm 29 years old, so that puts me in the age group that grew up with Furbies, but also had cell phones. So kind of a whole group of people. I was actually born in small town Texas, so I'm a long way from home. My grandmother on my mom's side was Mexican, so you can tell because my mustache doesn't meet in the middle. And then my dad's family is all from here in Northern Ireland, so that's kind of how we ended up here. And so in the 80s, my dad went to preaching school in Texas, and then he went to Free. And so when he was over there, he married my mom, had the three kids, and then in September of 2000, we moved back here again to work as missionaries. So we've been here nearly 20 years. In September, it'll be 20 years as a family. And then so I kind of met my wife while living here, and really I couldn't do the work that I do as a missionary without her, working with a congregation that doesn't have deacons or elders. It requires a certain level of flexibility that can be tough on family life, and so Amy kind of just takes that in her stride and really makes that easy for me. So we got three kids. We got the nonstop Lincoln, and he's 5 years old. The crazy Scarlet, and she's 3 years old. And then Madison, and I call her Madster the Menace. She gets in everything, and she's 1 year old. So my move into ministry was happened pretty quickly, actually. I was the manager of like a secure care facility for the elderly, and I kind of was working there when I realized I wanted to move into ministry. And it was really easy for me because having watched my dad in ministry growing up, the transition was relatively easy. And so I just kind of got to a point in my life where I needed to be helping people spiritually as well as physically. And that was kind of the big driving force for me. So then in 2016, Amy and Lincoln, he was the only one born at the time, we moved over to Knoxville to the Southeast to the biblical studies. And by the grace of God, then we have been working here in the mission field since 2018 when we graduated.
Man, that's fantastic. I appreciate you sharing that. With everything that's going on in the world today, especially the focus that's on the COVID-19 pandemic, life is obviously a little upside down at the moment for all of us. The Department of Health there in Ireland they're leading the government response and offering advice to the general public and for specific groups and settings, including employers, healthcare professionals, education settings, and religious settings. The government issued a 2-week stay-at-home order that goes through April the 12th, so just a couple more days for you guys. How has this mandatory stay-at-home order impacted you personally?
So the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland are separate. So Northern Ireland is ruled by the UK, so we're under British rule. So which is slightly different. It's like 100 years of history packed into one sentence. But we actually started with a 3-week lockdown, so we've still got about a week left. And they just told us today that they're not going to lift it at the end of the week. It'll probably run through the end of April. So we still have the rest of the month by the looks of things. So It has been really challenging. We were just moving home as the lockdown kind of broke in, and so we had to kind of rush to get everything in order. And you know how IKEA trips happen and stuff when you're moving, and so we weren't able to get that stuff done. And moving house is stressful enough without a pandemic, chasing you into your home. But listen, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. Not only that, but then Lincoln, who was in school, has now been homeschooling, so that's kind of put the stress level up. And right on the side of this wall here beside me is their playroom, and this is my office. And so the bumper pack of foam earplugs that my wife told me I'd never need are now getting a lot of use, and they have become really handy. But there's been other things as well, like having to learn how to use video editing software and how to manipulate audio and stuff that I could do a little bit of, but really having to do that as we were testing stuff for the congregation and to see what would work for them and also for us as ministers, that kind of stuff. The learning curve, we want to talk about a curve, my learning curve is going up in these last couple of weeks to get that going. But, having 3 kids locked in a house is a bad idea, even at the best of times. So having it right now has been tough. But you know what? We're finding ways to amuse them, and God has given us really good weather these last 2 weeks. So the kids have been able to get into the garden. We've been able to go for drives in the car and stuff, and to just kind of to manage it as we go. So there's been a fair amount of change, but we're just kind of adapting to it best that we can. I think especially now with the extended lockdown, just trying to keep our heads down and kind of keep some stability going is the best way for us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm a household of 6, so I've got 4 kids running around, and they're trying to do schoolwork, and some of them, they're still going to work. Their jobs are considered essential, so there's still that aspect of it, and trying to keep things disinfected and cleaned and everything else and stocked. Of course, when they're home, 3 of them are boys, and so trying to keep food in the pantry has been a challenge for us. So. One of the things that we've ran up against here is just trying to get items from stores. Are there any items that are selling out in your stores, such as toilet paper's been a big one here, milk, cleaning supplies, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So we have a saying here: when something's hard to find, it's like chicken's teeth. So hand soap has been like chicken's teeth. It's just been impossible to get any hand soap. And but the toilet roll on here, the aisles were just completely bare, as I'm sure everybody has seen the pictures. But what the supermarkets did here, and maybe they've done them there, is they put a 2-item kind of maximum on every item. And so that's kind of forced availability up, and it stopped people from panic buying. And that's what we needed to do from like 3 weeks ago. It would have really helped. But since we live on an island and there's so much farmland, we never really ran out of milk or vegetables. So that's one plus of living on a place where we produce all that really close at hand, So that has been valuable. But things are starting to get back to normal again. Though there was for about a week there, getting a packet of spaghetti was like winning the lottery, it's crazy. So I'm glad to see it kind of settling down again and people getting their heads screwed back on again a little bit.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I read on the church website that you're meeting in your homes and streaming services. What platform or platforms are you using to stream with, and would you say that it's been successful?
Yeah, so we actually started the lockdown earlier than the lockdown because like 60 to 70% of our congregation is either in the elderly or kind of in the vulnerable. So what we did is we dropped the Sunday evening service first. And we kept just the Sunday morning, but then the building that we rent, we don't have our own building, we kind of rent a local facility. They closed the whole facility down since it's a public access building, which was the right move. So what we were kind of a week ahead of the curve. So what we did is we were recording our Sunday morning service, then a separate video for the Lord's Supper, and then we were doing 3 weekly devotionals, kind of 10, 15-minute devotionals, just to encourage and keep the congregation in a good, positive mood. And then what we would do is I would upload those to my OneDrive, and then we would just send the link. We have a church WhatsApp group. You guys use WhatsApp, don't you?
We've got, I've used it before. So
okay. So that we have found that platform to be really good. But what we then did just Wednesday past is we set up Zoom, so it's like Skype for multiple people, I guess. I think it's been used pretty widely. So we tried that Wednesday evening. There were a few teething issues, but I guess it's always the case. Got those worked out, and then we had a really good connection. So we're going to try that again this Wednesday coming. And if that goes well, then we're going to move our Sunday services to Zoom, because it's been a solid platform, and we've been able to get a lot of the members on. And then I'm going to record the live streams and then send those by email to some of the ones that maybe aren't savvy enough to be able to get access to that. So that's what we've been working with, and with the exception of maybe just one or two people that either haven't been able to or have had other issues, it has been really helpful, and we're just adapting to what we've been given, and thank God that these kind of technologies exist. Otherwise, you think about the Spanish flu 100 years ago, just wouldn't have had the facilities to do this kind of stuff. So we're kind of blessed in a way from it, to be able to keep things moving this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Technology has definitely given us, an opportunity to stay in touch with one another. And we've been recording our videos and posting them out there on Facebook and in YouTube and different platforms to be able to have our members be able to access those. A lot of services have had to improve their streaming services because of the high demand, obviously. So we saw some problems with that in the beginning, but we've kind of ironed that out a little bit and been able to get our stuff recorded. Your stuff that you're recording and stuff, is that available for anybody else to view? And if so, how would they access that?
Yeah, so weekly, at least the recordings that we've done thus far are being uploaded onto our YouTube page. So if you just search the Bangor Church of Christ on YouTube, you'll be able to find it. And we don't have too many videos there yet, but as I say, weekly, as we start getting the streams recorded, they'll be going up. So we're putting them there. We had some issues with Facebook, trying to get Facebook working. So we kind of just stepped back and tried to get what we could working going. But I would like to be able to do Facebook live streaming, because you're going to get a wider audience that way. But I need to get that one ironed out before we can get moving.
Well, good deal. Other than the videos and stuff that you're recording, how else are you staying in touch with the members of your congregation?
Right. So this was a really big deal for me, actually, because we're a smaller congregation, of 40 members, 40 people all together in different places. And so what I did when I came back from the States is I set up a church WhatsApp group, and really we just used it for critical information and needs, and to encourage and with everybody on access to that kind of thing. If you had the kind of wrong personalities, you could have people posting stuff, but we have a great kind of group of people that kind of know how to use that and use it for the right reasons. And right now it has been really critical to be able to encourage each other. We get a lot of positive stuff being posted by everybody, and we're able to post our lessons directly to that. And that covers probably 80% of our congregation. What we do is we'll email or phone call some of the other members. We have one lady in particular, she is presently on heavy cancer treatment. So she's actually not allowed to be in contact with anybody else because her immune system is so suppressed. So we've just been calling her and trying to catch up with her. She doesn't have the access to some of this newer stuff. So what we've been doing is just calling her and praying with her and trying to work with what we have there with her. But it's been different, because usually I'm very interactive on people's homes, and part of our culture here is you just people come into each other's homes. That's kind of the same in the South there, but ministry is service, and that hasn't changed. But how that looks has changed. I've been delivering like tanks of propane and groceries, even medicine, so that people don't have to leave their houses and risk going into the pharmacist, and that kind of thing. Not only that, but the police are actually saying, if they see somebody that's too old, they're saying, listen, you need to go home, and so just dealing with that and trying to help the congregation fulfill their needs. And again, that WhatsApp group has been really good, because it allows me to be proactive, to see a need and fill it without calling people like 100 times a week saying, what do you need? What's going on? So it saves them having to listen to me, and it saves me having to call them 1,000 times. So the WhatsApp has been really good. And then with this new Zoom thing that we've got going, we're really making some good progress, and it's been helpful. I think everybody is really enjoying it.
Man, that's fantastic. Glad to hear that. And one of the things that we've implemented is splitting the congregation out into different groups and having elders and deacons and some of the leaders and the preachers reaching out to members and just checking on them to see how they're doing. And so we've got a lot of positive feedback on that. People have really appreciated the congregation reaching out and just checking in on them and seeing how they're doing and if they need anything. And so that's definitely been a positive for us. So what is something positive that you see happening as a result of this pandemic?
Well, listen, without doubt, it's got to have been the baptism of my cousin Jonathan. He actually got sick, and he called my dad early in the morning, about 2 a.m. and he said, "Listen, I've been putting this off too long. I need to get baptized," which was great, but also presented a challenge with him being sick, dad being high risk. He's got diabetes and a heart problem, and me having 3 kids. There wasn't actually anybody able to go to his house and baptize him. So what we did is he filled his own bathtub. His wife put the phone on speakerphone, and my dad actually walked him through the baptism there in his own bathtub. So just again, it's just we've been adapting, get what we got, and we're just dealing with it the best that we can. But really, that has been a really great point for us, and we added him onto the group chat, and he has been really encouraged and been a great encouragement to all of us. Everybody's kind of stressed and wondering what's happening, and to see that has been really good. But there's been a lot of great things. The congregation is reading and studying more now than ever, with no work or obligations. So my WhatsApp is dinging all the time. People asking me why Noah called his son Ham. What did Jesus mean when he said, all kinds of stuff. And it's just been really good to get that interaction with people and them asking these great questions. So there has been a lot of good. And, God is always blessing us. So we just have to open our eyes to it, don't we? And be able to see those kind of things.
Yeah, I think it's definitely made us take a step back and kind of look and evaluate things. I heard one preacher talking about how here in the West, we're not very good at doing house church, and that this has really made us focus on that and take advantage of this opportunity and to become better at those type of things. So, I think people's faith has definitely improved. They've grown closer to God. Anytime you go through something like this, people tend to turn to God at this moment and try to make sense of things and lean on Him and His power and His understanding and everything that He knows. And so I do see a level of faith increasing in people, and it's also you kind of see the community growing and reaching out and being more understanding and caring to one another. We get busy in our day-to-day lives, and when we're working 60 hours a week, and it's the hustle and the bustle and running crazy, to take a step back, and it gives us opportunities to take a breath and improve our prayer life and improve reading the scripture and not just reading it, but actually studying it and meditating on it, because now we have a chance to take a breath and do that kind of thing. So I definitely see the positives. Well, I've got a few questions from you. We actually polled our youth group, and we had a couple parents pop in as well. So I've got a few questions here I want to ask you. Some are kind of funny that I thought they were pretty funny, and so I'm interested to see what your response is, and I'm sure they are as well. So first question is, what is life like there in Bangor?
Yeah, Bangor. Listen, Bangor's a great little town. When I speak to people that knew that I was in the States for a couple of years, they'll say, "Why did you come back to Bangor again? When you could live in America." But listen, I just really love Bangor. It's a great little town. It's seaside, and we've got about 80,000 people. One of the things I really love about it is that you are kind of mixed between the big city life and the country life, because in Ireland everything's so much closer together because we don't have so much land, and so you can drive just a couple miles out of the middle of town and you're in the country. So you have this great mix of people, and it creates a bit of a diversity. But the people here are great and really kind, and you can talk to somebody on the street and say hello to total strangers. It's just a great place to live, and it makes evangelism 1,000 times easier when people are already friendly, and making those initial conversations that are usually uncomfortable are so much easier where people are kind of naturally open to that kind of thing. So life in Bangor is great. It rains a lot, and we deal with that. So you just bring an umbrella. But but yeah, I love Bangor, and it's a good spot to bring up kids to, which is a big bonus for us.
Love it. Well, I think this next question, it's probably different today than it was, a month ago. But what is a typical day like as a missionary for you?
Typical day, right? So I don't really have a typical day. I do have days that are similar. So I'll say this: being a missionary has got to be the best job in the world. I love it. Um, it is challenging in a lot of ways, and different. We're a registered charity here with the government, so there's a lot of legal and administrative upkeep, and I just love that stuff. Not really. But, well, listen, so I wake up and I study for the first 2 hours. I teach 4 classes a week. So I teach every Sunday, every other Sunday, I teach a Bible class. I have a men's class in my home every Tuesday evening and a Wednesday evening midweek class. And then I also teach on rotation a preacher's class on Skype. So a lot of my early part of my day is always in study and keeping up with that. And, we were told, and I think it's true, that if you ever stop studying, you need to stop preaching, because you can't feed people if you're not feeding yourself, and I think that's really important. So I spend usually the earlier parts. I'm an early bird anyway, so I don't stay up very late, like a little old lady. I get in bed, and put my slippers on. But and then on the Tuesdays and Thursdays, I typically try to meet the congregation and get out and kind of do some visiting. And that's one thing that has been kind of inhibited now with this, and it's been different. But one of the things I love about going and being in people's homes and interacting with them is that, something that somebody might not say on a Sunday or a Wednesday when they're at services, when you're sitting on their couch with them, they're going to be more open and talk to you about those kind of things and those things that are going on in life and with their family and friends. And you get to really know people when you're in their homes. That's kind of like something you were said there about house church. In the first century, the church started in people's homes. And for us, since we don't have our own building, that's just a natural part of how we do our Christianity here. And so it is different in that way, but it also means that we're in our homes. I can tell you what everybody's furniture looks like in their house, because that's how we do things. And so for us, this lockdown has been made a lot easier by the fact that we do church in house anyway a lot. And so that's been helpful. And, I like visiting with people. And now it has been phone calls and WhatsApp and stuff. And I'm sure people are always glad to hear from me. I hope, you think, you hope that they do. So whenever the lockdown is off, I teach weekly and then a bi-weekly study with some of our newer Christians. And I usually try to do that in a coffee shop. If you're going out to study anyway, you might as well get some good coffee when you're doing that. So that's a plus, being able to meeting with people. And actually, I have been studying with a guy who has Asperger's, a type of autism. And he's been really showing interest in becoming a Christian, but it's been challenging and really rewarding for me because I'm having to interact with him differently than I maybe would with somebody else, and having to learn how he takes stuff in is different than the way you and I maybe would. And so learning how to work with him and to make sure he understands things and make sure I'm saying things in a way that helps him. So that's been really challenging. But, my evangelism approach is based on making relationships with people and then helping them see a need for Jesus in their own lives. I found that of all the things that we do from an evangelistic point of view, that works the best, and especially in our community where people are open to talking. And, if you build relationships with people, that really helps. And so when you're doing that, you're in constant flux because everybody's different. Everybody's life changes constantly, and those relationships are constantly changing. And that's why there isn't really a typical day for me. It's always in flux, but it's really rewarding. And as I said, I think working as a minister and specifically as a missionary is kind of the best job in the world.
That's fantastic, and I appreciate that input. And when you were talking about studying with the individual with Asperger's and autism, I'm going to reach out to you because that interests me. I'm interested in seeing kind of what you're doing there and how your approach is to that. So I'll probably reach back out to you on that and just try to gather some notes because that's something that's kind of near and dear to my heart as well. So I'll follow back up with you on that. How many children or teens are there in your congregation? And the second part of that is that similar to other churches around you?
So we don't have any teens. We got my three, so young ones, and then another young girl, my cousin's daughter. She's been coming for about 6 months now, and I think she's 3, 2.5 or 3. So we've a couple of young ones, and that's something that we have been working on. In a 50-mile radius, there's only 2 other congregations. So in Belfast, that's the capital city of Northern Ireland, about 15 miles away from us, they have got a handful of teens and maybe a few young ones. But that's one of the big things that I have been focusing on, is to try to get the youth. My grandmother used to say, if you don't hear babies crying, the church is dying. And I think in that simplicity, it's really true that we really have to get families and youth in. And so one of the things that I really pushed for when we got back here again was friends and family days, and getting the congregation acquainted with their own friends and family in a church environment, and showing them that their Christianity is a part of their life and a part of how they do their own things. And so introducing that into the family circles, and that has been really good. We had one of them, we actually had more visitors than we had members, and so our little room that we rent was packed out. It was amazing. I know for a small congregation, that was just something totally crazy for us, that we had more visitors. But with that, we brought in 15 kids, and including their families. That's the potential for growth there is what we're really pushing for, and aiming to try to get the next generation into the church. Is an important deal for us.
Good deal. Well, I know I'm eating up some of your time here, and I appreciate it. So I got a few more questions here. We might go rapid fire and try to get some quick responses on these. And again, these are from our youth group and a couple of parents. So real quick, what in your life are you most grateful for?
It's a great question. I got a full and happy life. I work for the greatest cause on the planet, and I've got a happy, healthy wife and kids. If there is more to life, I don't know what it could be. I think I'm grateful for everything that God has given me in my life.
God is good, brother. Here's a good one I'm interested in as well. Is Irish food there like Irish pub food here?
Yes and no. Yes, in the same way that a McDonald's McRib is like a real rack of ribs. It's the same idea. Listen, to be fair, I've had some really good Irish style food there. And when you live in the South, it's got to be close. It's great food in the South. There's a place in Knoxville that do really good fish and chips, as we call it. You guys call it fish and fries, I guess. We call them chips. But it can be close in some places.
Does it get hot there in Bangor?
I grew up in Texas and New Mexico, and so I know what hot is, and so no is the answer. I think the record temperature ever was 91 degrees, so that gives you an idea. We kind of sit in the high 60s. That would be the hottest kind of days that we would typically get.
That sounds fantastic to me, because I am always hot. So, in Ireland, who would you say is the most popular musical artist, and do you have a favorite?
The American charts are followed pretty closely here. There's a guy called Louis Capaldi. I'm sure the youth have heard of him, but he's pretty big here right now. For me, I'm actually a classical music fan, so these names probably won't mean much to everybody, but Ludovico Einaudi, a guy called Edward Elgar, and then Handel as well. They're probably my top 3, but probably nobody's heard of those.
You're probably right. How is Christianity viewed where you're at?
That's a really great question. So even if you don't know much about the history of Northern Ireland, the older generation will remember the kind of 60s and 70s and 80s, the Troubles, as they called them. And that was mainly focused around feuds between the Protestants and Catholics. And so what that has done is created a generation, my generation really, that looks at Christianity as a thing of rivalry and angst. And so that's something that we have to work against in our evangelism, to try to overcome, especially as each generation becomes more secular. That's happening everywhere. And so Christianity is something that is kind of polarized. You're either a Protestant or a Catholic, or you hate the idea of Christianity altogether. And so there's a lot to overcome with that. It's a big question.
I got. I'm gonna drop down here. I got 3 quick questions for you. Is your mission work focused solely on your local community and congregation, or do you travel outside to other places to spread the good news?
So our congregation supports a missionary in India. We've been over a decade now with us. Um, but our kind of evangelism and main focus is on Bangor and the surrounding towns right around us. And so what we're trying to do is to grow the congregation for the next generation, so Lincoln, and to have a sound and stable congregation here in Bangor and the surrounding immediate community. So that's what we focus on from our own efforts.
Good deal. All right, last couple here. What is a Bible verse or passage that you would like to share with us today?
So it's got to be Mark 5 and verse 9. Jesus has just healed the guy with the spirit, the demon-possessed man, and so Jesus is getting back in the boat to head across the Sea of Galilee, and the guy comes back up to Jesus and says, "Please let me come with you." But Jesus doesn't. In verse 19, Jesus says, "Go back to your friends and tell them what the Lord has done for you and how He has had mercy on you." And that verse really kind of resonates with me because it's something that everybody can do. You don't have to have a Bible degree. You don't have to be a preacher. You can always go and tell your friends how much Jesus has done for you and how He has had mercy on you. And so for my own ministry, that's something that really sits strong with me.
Absolutely, man. We all have a part to play. God has given us all different talents. You can look throughout the Bible and when you can look at Peter, or you can look at Paul and try to mimic them, or you can just be like Andrew, who knew how to communicate with people and knew how to, knew where the fish were when they needed to feed the 5,000. So we all have a part to play, and none of it is small. It is all huge. So, before we go here, is there any message you'd like to leave us with before we head out of here?
Just to say thank you for letting me share my life and work and family with you guys. I had an old preacher friend tell me one time, he said, "Go with God and God will go with you." So I guess I'll leave you guys with that. During this kind of uncertain time, I want to pray that everybody stays safe and God blesses you, and go with God.
Awesome, man. Jordan, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time this evening to spend a little time with us and to answer our questions. Is there anything that we can do for you?
Hey, listen, you can keep us in prayer. I got 3 kids going crazy. So keep us in prayer that we can stay healthy and that God's going to take care of us.
You'll definitely be in our prayers, man. I appreciate you again. I'll reach out to you because, like I said, I want to hit you up on a couple other things, and I love that we've got this means here to be able to communicate with one another and to spread the good news, my friend.
Definitely. Thank you. God bless, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Have a great evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys so much for your time. The conversation ran a little longer than I anticipated, but it was great catching up with Jordan. Hopefully it was beneficial to you guys and that you have a great evening. God bless y'all.